I overheard my son telling my daughter-in-law, "I've got the old man's house, now we just need to dump him in a nursing home." I opened the door laughing and said, "This old man recorded you, and now what?" My name is Harold Thompson, 78 years on my back, retired carpenter who still takes odd jobs when my fingers allow it. I live in Pine Creek, a small town in rural Montana where everyone knows everyone and the church bells still mark the rhythm of life. I raised 3 children here, built more than 50 houses with these calloused hands, and thought I knew people's hearts well. But life has those surprises that knock you off your feet, especially when they come from those you love most. The house where I live was built brick by these hands that now tremble a little. Wood that I personally selected, flooring that I sanded until it shined like a mirror. 42 years of sweat poured into this land that I bought with money I saved, working from sunup to sundown. While others spent their money on beer on weekends, I saved every penny thinking about my children's future, especially Arnold's, my youngest, who always said he was proud of his carpenter father, that he wanted to learn the trade, but ended up becoming a businessman in the city. Irony of fate that from him came the deepest cut. Before continuing this story, I'd like to thank the Grandpa's Tales channel for letting me share my story. And I ask you watching to subscribe to the channel. Leave your like, comment where you're watching from and what time it is there. Every day there's a new story here. Stories from people like me who've lived a lot and learned that life is a teacher who doesn't let you cheat, but always gives you a chance to make up the grade. Now let me tell you how an honest man like me ended up hiding behind a door, recording his own family plotting behind his back. Oh, my son, if your mother were alive to see this. I was born in 1947 in a mixed community of German and Irish immigrants, with the smell of baking bread and singing during harvests. My father, Herman, was a woodworker and taught me the trade from an early age. "Harold, good wood doesn't lie. If you know how to listen, it tells you how it wants to be worked," he would say, while showing me how to plane a board. I grew up among sawdust and varnish, learning that honest work shapes not only wood, but a man's character. By 16, I had an adult's calloused and precise hands. I started working as a helper on larger construction projects in Billings, going back and forth every week. That's where I met my Helen, a girl from an Italian family who worked at the bakery where I bought my bread early mornings. We married in 1970, me at 23, her at 20, a simple celebration in the church hall. We returned to Pine Creek because we wanted to raise our children away from the city rush, with clean air and room to run. Our life wasn't easy, but it was honest. I set up my workshop in a small shed lent by my buddy Frank. We started from scratch, with tools my father gave me as a gift. Helen took in sewing while managing our home. In 1972, our first daughter, Lucy, was born. Then came Roger in 1975, and finally Arnold in 1983, when we no longer expected to have another child. It was a surprise we received as a blessing. The workshop grew gradually. At first I made everything: furniture, doors, windows, even coffins when the funeral home's only carpenter fell ill. With time, I specialized in complete house projects, from structure to finishing. I gained a reputation for being meticulous. "If it's Harold's work, it'll outlast the owner," they said around town. I worked from 5 a.m. to 7 p.m., sometimes longer. Helen complained that I'd end up sleeping in the workshop, but she understood it was for our family. In 1983, the same year Arnold was born, I managed to buy the land where my house stands today. It was a weed-covered slope nobody wanted, but with my trained eye I saw potential. On weekends and after work I cleared it, leveled it, prepared it. It took 3 years just to get the land ready and start construction. Each brick was laid by me, each beam placed with the help of friends in work parties. Helen carried little Arnold in a baby carrier while serving coffee and homemade jam to the workers. That's how our home was built, bit by bit. The years passed. Lucy became a teacher and went to work in the city. Roger followed my footsteps in carpentry for a while, but then joined the highway patrol and is now a sergeant in Bozeman. As for Arnold, our Arnold was always different. Intelligent, talkative, full of big plans. At school, teachers said he had a head for business. While his siblings helped with chores, he lived with his head in the clouds, dreaming of leaving, saying Pine Creek was too small for his dreams. When I turned 60 in 2007, Helen was already sick. Cancer, that cursed disease that respects no one, not even the good. I sold part of the workshop to pay for treatments in Billings. By that time, Arnold had already moved there, working at a bank and saying he was building a career. On the few occasions he visited, he'd complain about the house, saying it was outdated, that we needed modern things. He even suggested we sell everything and move to a small apartment. Helen would smile and change the subject. In 2010, my Helen passed away. 17 days in the hospital, I held her hand until her last breath. The children came for the funeral, of course. Lucy and Roger stayed with me for a week, organizing things, helping me with paperwork. Arnold came with his wife, Deborah, but stayed only 3 days, saying he had urgent commitments. It was the first time I noticed something strange in his gaze. It wasn't just hurry, it was, how can I put it, a cold calculation, like someone mentally counting while looking at the house furniture. After Helen was gone, the house felt too big for me. But it was our home, filled with memories of her in every corner. The garden she tended, the kitchen where she made those cornbreads that made the whole neighborhood's mouth water. I couldn't simply abandon all that, so I stayed there alone, but surrounded by good memories. I officially retired, but still did small jobs for acquaintances, more to keep my mind occupied than for the money. It was in 2015 that Arnold started coming more often, always with Deborah. Suddenly, the son who barely had time to call was showing up almost every month. They brought gifts, a new television, a cell phone I hardly knew how to use, even a motorized rocking chair I never felt comfortable sitting in. "Dad, you worked so hard, you deserve comfort now," he would say, while Deborah photographed the house from inside, saying it was to decorate a similar corner in their home. At first I was happy with the renewed attention, but soon realized each visit came with a suggestion. "Dad, this property is too big for you to take care of alone." "Dad, what if we remodeled the house to increase its value?" "Dad, have you thought about making a will?" Small drops that, like in green wood, were creating cracks in my trust. The year 2022 was when things really started to change. I was already 75, my hands weren't as steady, and that problem with my right knee was bothering me quite a bit, especially on rainy days. That's when Arnold showed up with a proposal that, according to him, would be good for everyone. "Dad, I was thinking, you're alone in this huge house. You have to climb stairs, take care of the yard. It's not appropriate for your age anymore," he began, while we were drinking coffee on the porch. Deborah nodded in agreement, always smiling in that way that never reached her eyes. "You could transfer the house to my name, you know. We would sell our apartment in Billings and come live here. Then you'd stay with us, well cared for, without worries." I confess that for a moment the idea seemed good. I was indeed tired, and the loneliness sometimes weighed on me, but something in his tone of voice made me suspicious. Arnold never wanted to return to Pine Creek. He always said it was a backward place with no opportunities. "And your job at the bank, son? What would happen to it?" I asked, blowing on my coffee. "Oh, Dad, nowadays you can work from anywhere, and there's a bank here too. I can ask for a transfer," he answered too quickly, as if he had rehearsed the response. That night after they left, I thought about it. My father always said, "Harold, when a deal seems too good, be suspicious." I decided not to give an answer right away. I said I would think about it. The next day I called Lucy and told her about the conversation. My daughter remained silent on the other end of the line for so long that I thought the call had dropped. "Dad, you're not going to do this, right?" She finally spoke with a concern in her voice that tightened my heart. "Arnold's got some debts, you know. Roger told me he owes money to loan sharks in Billings. That's probably why he wants the house." It was like getting punched in the stomach. My own son, my youngest, thinking of the house not as a home, but as a way out of a hole he had dug himself. Still, I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe Lucy was exaggerating or had heard some rumor. I resolved to observe more before deciding anything. In the following weeks, Arnold called almost every day. Suddenly, he was very concerned about my health, my diet. He even mentioned a retirement home in Helena, which according to him was like a 5-star hotel for seniors. "They have nurses there 24 hours a day, Dad. You'd love it," They even have a game room, he said, as if offering a gift. But I had heard about this place. It was an expensive nursing home where children put their parents when they wanted to get rid of them, but without a guilty conscience. In June 2023, Roger visited me. My middle son was always the most direct of the three. He sat with me at the kitchen table, placed his patrol hat next to him, and went straight to the point. "Dad, do you know that Arnold is selling this house? He's showing it to realtors, saying you've already agreed to transfer it to his name." The coffee cup trembled in my hand, spilling some on the embroidered tablecloth Helen had made. Selling it? The house isn't even his. "Is this true, Roger? Are you sure?" I asked, wanting to believe it was some misunderstanding. "Unfortunately, it is, Dad. Sheriff Benton, who was my instructor, has a cousin who's a realtor. He came to see the house last week. Arnold showed him everything, even took measurements, said you had already signed a power of attorney and that only a few bureaucratic details were left." At that moment, something inside me changed. It wasn't just suspicion anymore, it was certainty. My son was plotting behind my back, lying, treating me like a foolish old man who could be deceived and discarded. The pain was so great that I remained silent for several minutes, looking at the yard where I had planted those orange trees more than 30 years ago. "Dad, are you okay?" Roger asked, concerned about my silence. "I am, son, just thinking about what to do," I answered softly. Roger wanted to confront his brother immediately, to arrest him. Those things policemen do, but I asked him not to do anything yet. "Leave it to me, son. I want to see how far this story goes." The following week, Arnold and Deborah showed up unexpectedly on a Sunday. They brought a chocolate cake and a bunch of papers in a black folder. They had barely sat down when they were already placing the documents on the table. "Dad, look what I brought. It's just a formality, you know, to ensure you'll be well taken care of," Arnold said, pushing a paper in my direction. "It's a power of attorney and a deed of gift. The lawyer said it's more practical this way. Avoids bureaucracy later." I took the paper with my hands, which despite their age still know how to recognize when something isn't right. It was a document transferring the house completely to his name, without reservations, without right of usufruct, nothing. If I signed that, I would literally be putting myself on the street. "And where will I live afterwards, son?" I asked, feigning innocence. "I already told you, Dad, in the retirement home. It's a great place. I even have photos here." Deborah hastened to show a brochure with images of smiling elderly people playing dominoes. "You'll make lots of friends your age." "And how much does all this wonder cost?" I questioned. The two exchanged uncomfortable glances. "Well, it's not cheap," admitted Arnold, "but we'll help at the beginning until you adapt. Then there's your pension." My carpenter's pension barely covered medications, let alone a 5-star hotel, as they called it. At that moment, I was sure of the plan. They would take the house, throw me into some nursing home, much cheaper than the one in the photos, and then abandon me there with the excuse that I had chosen it myself. "I need to think, son." "I can't decide just like that," I said, returning the papers. "Let me talk to your siblings, too." Arnold frowned immediately. "Dad, we don't need to involve them in this. It's between us. You know how Lucy is jealous and Roger has a temper. They'll make a fuss over nothing." I nodded, but I had already decided what to do. As soon as they left, I called Ted, my buddy who has an electronics shop in town. The next day, he showed up with a discreet little device. "Just press here when you want to record, Harold," he explained. "It fits in your pocket, records up to 10 hours. I used it a lot when I suspected an employee was stealing from the store." I started recording all conversations with Arnold and Deborah. In phone calls, I put it on speakerphone and left the recorder next to it. During visits, the device stayed in my shirt pocket. In one of these recordings, I caught Deborah talking to her mother on the cell phone in the backyard. "Mom, it's a matter of time. The old man is almost convinced. Arnold says if he doesn't sign willingly, he'll try for guardianship. Says his father is getting senile, that he forgets things. Then it becomes even easier. He becomes the guardian, and that's it." I felt a chill down my spine. Guardianship? Declaring me incompetent? Me who still solved crossword puzzles every day and helped with the church accounts? What an outrage. But now I knew they were willing to go way too far. In early 2025, the visits intensified. Arnold came almost every week, always insisting on signing the papers. "Dad, you're not getting any younger. We need to resolve this soon," he would say impatiently. The pressure was so great that I began to pretend I was considering the idea just to buy time and collect more evidence. In July this year, they came with a new strategy. Arnold brought a doctor, Dr. Mills, supposedly to evaluate my health, but I knew that type well. He asked some basic questions, noted some things, and then stayed talking quietly with Arnold on the porch. Later, I discovered through a recorded call that he had written a report saying I showed signs of cognitive decline, compatible with early senile dementia. All set up, of course. The final blow came on the last Sunday of August, 3 days ago. Arnold and Deborah showed up saying they had a surprise. They brought an old toolbox that, according to them, they had found in the attic of their house. "Look, Dad, we found your old tools." "I remembered you always said you wanted to show your grandson how you worked," Arnold said, opening the box. "It was my old carpentry kit that I had given him years ago, when I still believed he would one day be interested in the trade. I was touched for a moment, until I realized the move. They were appealing to the sentimental side. While I examined the tools, with tears in my eyes remembering my father, they placed the same papers on the table along with a pen. "Dad, since we're having a good day today, how about we finally resolve this house issue? Look, I even put a new clause guaranteeing you can visit whenever you want," said Arnold, pointing to a tiny paragraph at the bottom of the page. Visit the house I built." It was at that moment I decided I had enough evidence. I said I needed to go to the bathroom and took my phone with me. I called Roger and whispered, "Son, come over now. Bring Lucy if you can. Your brother is here trying to make me sign over the house." I returned to the living room and started stalling, asking to read the document carefully, asking questions about insignificant details. Arnold was increasingly impatient, looking at his watch constantly. That's when I heard Arnold going out through the kitchen window to take a call. I went quietly there and listened. He was talking to someone about values, about selling the house as soon as the transfer was completed. I put the recorder to the slightly open window and captured every word. "Yeah, man, it's today. The old man will sign. He's soft now. No, I'm not waiting 30 days. I'll sell directly and pay off that debt. I promised for next week. Yeah, I'll dump him in that county nursing home. The other one is too expensive. Don't be silly, man. Nobody will care. The old man has no one else. The siblings live far away, rarely show up." The pain I felt at that moment is unexplainable. It's like someone ripped out my heart with bare hands. My own son, my youngest, talking about me as if I were a nuisance, a problem to be solved and discarded. I remembered his face as a baby when I first held him, the pride I felt when he learned to walk, the sleepless nights when he was sick with fever. All this for what? To be treated like this in old age. Arnold returned inside and found Deborah in the living room. Thinking I was still in the bedroom, they started whispering. I silently positioned myself behind the door, separating the living room from the hallway with the recorder on. That's when I heard those words I'll never forget. "Got the old man's house. Now we just need to dump him in a nursing home," my son said to my daughter-in-law, laughing as if telling a funny joke. "Finally," replied Deborah. "I couldn't stand coming to this backwater anymore. I can't wait to see your siblings' faces when they find out we got everything." At that moment, something inside me changed. The pain gave way to cold determination. I, Harold Thompson, who had never deceived anyone in life, who always believed in honesty above all, made the decision to fight. I opened the door laughing like someone who just discovered the trick and said, "This old man recorded you, and now what?" The two froze. Arnold's face went white as paper. Deborah dropped the cup she was holding, shattering on the wooden floor my hands had sanded decades ago. "Dad," stammered Arnold, "were you listening? It's not what you think." "It's not what I think," I repeated, feeling a new strength in my legs. "Then explain to me what it is, son. Explain why you're talking about dumping me in a nursing home. Explain why you're selling a house that isn't even yours yet." He tried to approach, but I raised my hand. "No, stay where you are. I have everything recorded. Everything. The conversations, the plans, even the part about the doctor you paid to say I'm senile." It was at that exact moment that the doorbell rang. Roger and Lucy had arrived with worried faces. When they entered and saw the scene, me standing with the recorder in hand, Arnold and Deborah paralyzed, they understood something serious was happening. "Good thing you arrived," I told my other children. "We need to have a family conversation, a very serious one." That night, the living room of my house witnessed one of the tensest meetings in the history of the Thompson family. We all sat at the kitchen table, me, Lucy, Roger, Arnold, and Deborah. The recorder stayed in the center, like a silent fifth person who had a lot to say. "First of all," I began, "I want everyone to know that I'm not senile or confused or in need of guardianship. I'm fully aware of my actions and of the betrayal that was being plotted here." Arnold tried to interrupt, but Roger, with his police posture, silenced him with a look. I pressed the recorder button and let the recorded voices tell the story on their own. As the conversations played, the plans to institutionalize me, the advance sale of the house, the lies about my mental health, I saw Lucy and Roger's faces go from surprise to indignation and finally to anger. "How could you, Arnold?" Lucy asked with a choked voice when the recording ended. "We're talking about our father, the man who sold part of his workshop to pay for Mum's treatment." Arnold looked down, his shoulders slumped. Deborah, on the contrary, maintained a defensive expression, as if she could still leave there with some dignity. "You don't understand," Arnold finally spoke. "I'm in serious financial trouble. I owe dangerous people." "And the solution was to steal the house from your own father?" Roger questioned, hitting the table. "Why didn't you come ask for our help? We could have found another way." The discussion continued for hours. Arnold cried, asked for forgiveness, said he was desperate. Deborah remained silent most of the time, but when she spoke, it was to defend her husband or minimize the seriousness of what they had done. Around midnight, when everyone was emotionally exhausted, I decided to reveal my final trump card. "There's one more thing you need to know," I said, getting up with some difficulty. I went to my room and returned with an old leather folder, the kind nobody uses nowadays. Inside were documents yellowed by time. "When I bought this land in 1983, I didn't just buy this lot where the house stands. I also bought the neighboring property, the one that goes down to the creek. At the time it was all woodland and nobody valued it. I registered everything properly, but never told anyone because I wanted to surprise your mother someday, to build a vacation home by the creek. After she passed away, I didn't see any point in that anymore, and ended up storing the papers. I opened the folder and showed the deed to the adjacent property, 3 times larger than the current houses, registered in my name. With the town's growth in recent years, that area had become enormously valuable. According to the latest appraiser who was here, at my secret request, not Arnold's, just that property was worth over $400,000. Last year, when I began to suspect Arnold's intentions, I contacted Mr. Jefferson, that lawyer who's the son of Jack the blacksmith, remember? He helped me register a will, making it clear that this property will be divided equally between Lucy and Roger. Arnold raised his eyes, finally understanding the extent of what he was losing with his actions. Not just the family's respect, but also a significant inheritance. "And there's more," I continued. "Jefferson helped me file a formal complaint against Dr. Mills for falsifying a medical report. The State Medical Board is already investigating the case. As for you two," I looked at Arnold and Deborah, "the recordings are sufficient evidence of attempted fraud and coercion. Roger can better explain the legal implications of that." My middle son, always correct, explained in legal terms what they were facing, the possibility of criminal proceedings, the consequences for Arnold's banking career, everything. "But Dad," Roger asked when he finished the explanation, "what do you want to do now? Do you want me to take this forward officially?" That was the moment I dreaded most. Despite everything, Arnold was still my son, the boy who once held my hand to cross the street, who cried on my shoulder when he lost his first school football championship. How does a father punish a child like that? "What I want," I answered after a long silence, "is justice, not revenge. And I want things to be clear for everyone." The next day, with the help of Mr. Jefferson, who came especially for this, we drafted an agreement. Arnold would confess in writing what he had tried to do and would formally renounce any right to my current house. In exchange, I would not file a formal complaint with the police. It was also decided that Lucy would come live with me. She was already thinking about retiring from the school where she taught, and the idea of returning to Pine Creek didn't displease her. Roger committed to coming every weekend, bringing my grandson Gabriel, who always liked to learn some carpentry tricks from his grandfather. As for Arnold and Deborah, they weren't expelled from the family, but a natural distance was imposed. He promised to seek help for his financial and character problems, maybe therapy. He said that one day he hoped to regain my trust. I replied that the door would always be open for him, but that trust was like fine wood. Once cracked, it never looks the same, no matter how much you sand and varnish it. A week later, I received a call from Arnold's bank. His manager informed me that he had resigned and was moving to Oregon, where Deborah's family had businesses. He didn't say goodbye in person. He just left an envelope with Lucy, containing a letter asking for forgiveness and some old photos from when we were a happy family. The news spread through Small Pine Creek like wildfire in dry grass. Everyone found out that the son from the city had tried to swindle old Harold. To my surprise, the entire community mobilized around me. Mrs. Jenkins from the bakery started sending fresh bread every morning. Pastor Edwards came to have coffee with me on Tuesdays. Even the mayor showed up, saying he wanted to award me as an honorary citizen for services rendered to the town over so many years. Mr. Thompson is a living heritage of Pine Creek, he declared in an improvised speech in the square. A man who built half the houses in this town deserves our respect and protection. What moved me most, though, was the reaction of the young people. When they heard the story, a group of students from the woodworking technical course at the state school asked to visit my workshop. They wanted to learn from a real master, they said. So at 78, I suddenly found myself giving carpentry lessons to 6 boys and 2 girls, all eager to learn how to work wood the old way without so many machines. The machine does it fast, but the hand does it with soul, I always repeat to them. The property I revealed during the family crisis didn't remain abandoned. With Roger's help and my new apprentices, we started clearing and organizing it, not to sell but to transform it into a small community park with wooden benches made by us and some fruit trees. It will be called Helen's Park, in honor of my wife, who loved nature so much. As for the corrupt doctor, Dr. Mills, he ended up losing his license to practice medicine. The board's investigations revealed it wasn't the first time he had issued false reports in exchange for money. It was a small victory for justice. In October this year, I received an unexpected call. It was Arnold. His voice seemed different, humbler perhaps. "Dad, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," he began, "but I want you to know that I'm in treatment. I realized I have a problem with money, with ambition. I'm trying to improve. I didn't say I forgave him because it would be a lie. The wound was still open, but I said I was proud of him for seeking help, for acknowledging his mistake. It's the first step toward any recovery, whether of a damaged piece of wood or a stained character. The door remains open," I said before hanging up. "When you're ready, come have coffee with me. I don't know if we'll ever be like before. Some cracks are too deep to be completely repaired, but as a good carpenter, I know that even cracked wood can be useful and beautiful if worked with care and respect." The justice I sought wasn't that of revenge, but of exposed truth and natural consequences. My house is still mine. My loyal children are by my side. The community respects me. And I, Harold Thompson, at 78, learned that even in old age, we can still defend ourselves and, more importantly, still teach young people the value of honesty and dignity. Now that a few months have passed since that August night, I can look back with more clarity. They say time is the best medicine for soul wounds. And there's some truth in that. The pain of betrayal hasn't completely disappeared. I doubt it ever will, but it no longer wakes me up in the middle of the night like before. This morning, while having my coffee on the porch, watching the sunrise paint the trees I planted decades ago with gold, I reflected on everything that happened. Maybe it's an old man's habit, this tendency to ruminate on the past, trying to find meaning in the unexpected turns life takes. But I think that's how we learn, gathering the little pieces of experiences like someone assembling a wood mosaic. What saddens me most isn't being deceived, but realizing I raised a son capable of doing this. Where did I go wrong? Did I give too much love or too little? Did I spoil him when he was little, creating in him this feeling that he could take whatever he wanted without consequences? Or was it that in my eagerness to give him opportunities I didn't have, I ended up not teaching him the value of honest work? Lucy says I shouldn't blame myself. Dad, everyone makes their own choices in life. You gave him the tools, but how he used them was his decision. Sighs wise words from my teacher daughter, who now shares with me this house full of memories. Her presence has brought new life to these old walls. She transformed the guest room into a small studio where she gives painting lessons to neighborhood children on Saturday afternoons. The sound of children's laughter filling the house is a balm for this old heart. Roger kept his promise to bring Gabriel every weekend. My 15-year-old grandson showed a natural talent for carpentry that fills me with pride. Last month we made a coffee table together for Roger's living room, using reclaimed wood from an old house they tore down in the square. "This wood has history, Grandpa," he said as we sanded the boards. "We're giving it a second chance." I was moved by the boy's sensitivity. The small community park on the adjacent property is taking shape. With the help of the mayor's office and residents, we've already planted 20 fruit trees and installed 10 benches made by me and my apprentices from the technical school. Next month will be the official inauguration, complete with a community barbecue and music from the school band. Helen would have loved to see that once abandoned space transformed into a meeting place and joy for the community. As for Arnold, I get news of him from time to time through Lucy. It seems he's really making an effort to change. He started working with his father-in-law in a small furniture factory in Oregon. Irony of fate that he returned to a craft similar to mine. Last month, he sent by mail a wooden horse he carved himself for Roger's son, my youngest grandson who just turned 3. It wasn't refined work. You could tell it was made by inexperienced hands, but it had heart. With it came a simple note. "Dad, I'm learning." I kept the note in the dresser drawer along with Helen's letters. Deborah asked for a divorce, I found out recently. It seems she couldn't handle the change in lifestyle, the simplicity of a small town after the luxury of Billings. Or maybe it was just the revelation of each one's true character, which crises always bring to the surface. Arnold is living alone now in a small apartment above the factory. In a way, he's starting from scratch, as I started so many decades ago. Part of me still worries about him despite everything. He's my son after all, flesh of my flesh. Last week I asked Lucy to call him and invite him for Christmas. It will be strange, certainly. There will be suspicious glances, awkward silences. But that's what family is. Imperfect, complicated, sometimes painful, but still family. This whole experience taught me a lot about trust. When young, I trusted people easily. As I aged, I became more cautious, but I still believed that blood ties guaranteed loyalty. Now I know there are no guarantees. Trust is like a piece of fine wood. It takes time to grow, requires constant care, and, once broken, never returns to being exactly as it was. I also learned about the importance of community. When family fails, sometimes it's neighbors, friends, acquaintances who become our support network. Pine Creek embraced me when I needed it most, proving that the roots I planted here over decades were deeper than I imagined. And finally, I learned that we're never too old to start over. At 78, I could have given in to the role of victim, whining in corners about children's ingratitude. Instead, I found a new purpose teaching the craft I love to young people, creating a space that will benefit the entire community, strengthening bonds with the children and grandchildren who truly value my presence. Life is like wood. It has grain, knots, imperfections. The secret isn't trying to find the perfect piece, but learning to work with what we have, valuing even the irregularities, for they are what make each piece unique. Today, sitting on my porch, watching the street movement, children going to school, neighbors waving as they pass, I feel a peace I didn't expect to find after so much turbulence. My house remains mine, not just on paper, but in the deepest sense. It's my refuge, my legacy, the material testimony of a life of honest work. Sometimes when I'm in the workshop working with my apprentices, I catch myself imagining if Arnold will one day return to learn too, to reconnect with his roots, through the craft that marked our family for generations. The workshop door, like that of my heart, remains ajar for that possibility, not with naivety, but with the cautious wisdom of someone who has felt the bitter taste of betrayal. Meanwhile, I continue living one day at a time, grateful for small joys, the smell of fresh sawdust, the warmth of coffee on cold mornings, my grandchildren's smiles, my daughter's company. Life is too short to be wasted on bitterness. As my father used to say, Harold, it doesn't matter how many times you fall, what matters is how many times you get up, dust yourself off, and move forward. And that's what I'm doing, moving forward with the dignity of someone who knows his own worth and doesn't allow others' actions to define who he is. If you've made it this far, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like. And if you really followed me to the end of this journey, comment below with the word dignity. Only those who watched will understand the meaning. Thank you to Grandpa's Tales channel for this opportunity to share my story. Who knows, maybe the next one will be even more similar to yours. A tight hug from this old man here, who learned that even in the most difficult situations, we can always choose the path of honesty and self-respect.